Hi, I'm Zeke with the Eastside Church of Christ in Baytown, Texas. Thanks for joining us for our Eastside 5x5x5 Bible reading for the week of May 23rd through the 29th, 2021. This week we'll be reading the last chapter of the book of Acts, Acts chapter 28, and we'll be beginning the first 4 chapters in the book of Romans. So let's get started. After a harrowing sea storm and a subsequent shipwreck, Acts 28 has Paul and his fellow travelers on the island called Malta, and they're being kindly treated by the natives. Paul escapes death by snake bite, and he heals a leading man of the island. And after wintering on the island, they continue on to Italy, where Paul is warmly welcomed by the Christians before getting to Rome. He arranges meetings with some of the leading Jews, but they were uninformed of his confrontations with the Jews in Judea. He remains under arrest for 2 years, doing what he loves most, teaching and preaching the gospel. Romans has been viewed as the greatest treatise on salvation ever written. And while it may be so, we shouldn't forget that it's also a letter written to Christians encouraging them to be godly based on their position in Christ. Romans 1 opens with warm greetings, and Paul speaks of his desire to see the Roman Christians. And then he writes that God's wrath awaits all those who reject him, even though God will allow them to rebel and descend further into depravity. Notice how often Paul says God gave them over. He says it at least 3 times in verses 24, 26, and 28. Well, Romans 2 shows how none are excused from judgment and all deserve condemnation. God doesn't judge by what men approve, but by what they do. And Paul says what they do is sin. Paul portrays God as being fair and just, and the Jew, while thinking himself righteous, is fairly judged and condemned. Romans 3 reminds that while the Jews had the advantage of being God's people and having his word, they didn't take advantage of the advantages. In fact, all people, Paul says, Jew and Gentile, are guilty before God. But the good news is that God has provided a gift, a way to be right before him. Romans chapter 4 shows Paul demonstrating from the Jews' own history that salvation has always been a gift from God, received by faith. Righteousness was credited to Abraham, he says, because he believed God, not because he was a perfect law keeper. This righteousness is based on forgiveness, not perfection. Since Abraham was right with God before circumcision, he can be the father of all who believe God today just as he did. There's a lot to consider. You'll find so much to think about, not only in the last chapter of the book of Acts, but also in Romans chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, as we continue our 5x5x5 Eastside Bible reading. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. God bless you.